Sexual reclamation is spiritual rebirth, is a presentation based on a radical idea. Take a moment to think about what these words actually imply. To even consider these words, one must step into rebellion and become a visionary. For the world we live in preaches the exact opposite of this. Women have been indoctrinated with the belief that our sexuality taints or even has power to destroy our spirituality. I am here to make a bold declaration. I believe that reclaiming our sexuality has the power to expand our spirituality by being a catalyst for our healing, opening the portals for divine connection, and being the process by which our truest self is born. I have an ask. As we journey together during this short time, I'd like you to pay attention to your body and thoughts. Throughout this presentation, I invite you to pay attention to what you feel and from where those feelings originate. I have intentionally embedded hypnotic elements, including metaphors, into this presentation to help you move into a space deeper than you normally inhabit. You may notice thoughts and feelings come up. Pay attention to them and to what they are teaching you. In this space, you are more connected into yourself and to the inner workings of your mind and body. The most valuable question I can ask you is, who are you? And instead of you giving me the typical answers to these questions, I'd like you to simply form an image of who you are in your mind. In this presentation, I share a number of metaphors that just might alter the image you are now creating, because you are here to learn, to shift, and to grow, aren't you? Often, the most powerful catalyst for shifting and growing is to perceive ourselves differently. I'd like you to create an image of a seed hanging high in the branches of a tall tree, feeling happy and content in its present state. Everything is great for our seed until it isn't anymore. Something new and seemingly terrible is beginning to happen. Our seed falls to the earth. Oh no, it might say, I've fallen and lost the high place that I once held. What will become of me? How do I get back up there? Then, of course, you and I know what happens next, because this is happening all over the planet, and it happens every day. Seeds fall, and then things get worse. Our seed has fallen in a very dirty place. Soon the rain comes and turns the dirt to mud, deep mud. Our poor seed is beside himself. What is happening to him and why? Darkness envelops him. All that he has now is a memory of where he was and a vague sense of a very hard to reach idea that he perhaps was made for something more than he is presently able to understand. Now terror sets in and the traces of comfort completely disappear as he begins to realize that he is being penetrated by the water that now surrounds him. The penetrating water seems to be the harbinger of the end. He swells to the point of breaking. No, he laments. Everything I know about who I am is shattering. Our human perspective says these are the cycles of life. This is not psychology or spirituality. This is biology. This is a mundane, everyday life event that is happening all around us all the time. To us, this is the purpose for which the seed was created. In fact, following the seed in the process of breaking to the seed itself becoming a massive oak tree seems so natural, we hardly think about it, let alone mourn with the seed. The shattering of the seed, darling, is simply how the tree is born. It is teaching us that a tree has two very different ways of existing. First as a seed and second as a tree. The process of unbecoming one and becoming the other is natural and simple, something we take for granted. A seed becomes a tree, but even as a seed, it was always a tree, wasn't it? Do you see the deeply embedded and beautiful metaphor for your life playing out in the perpetuation of the plant kingdom all around you? Metaphorically, you are the seed and the tree. This metaphor teaches us that there are two very different ways in which we can live our lives and function as human beings. Trees are a parallel for our ultimate potential. They are the true essence of who we are. They show us how to break free from our limitations, to fully mature, to bear fruit and expand endlessly. Seeds, they show us where we begin. Everything a seed needs to become a tree, except, of course, for water, earth, and sun, is already inside of it. There is something of value for us to learn here. The truth for us is that we have inherent, unlimited potential for expansion, just like trees. Or we can, if we choose, live as seeds. This process of breaking out of the old and becoming the new is simply being born again or experiencing a rebirth. It's the process of being born anew and becoming a new creature. It's breaking out of the seed and becoming the tree we were always meant to be. As we look deeper into the experience of living a seed kind of life compared to a tree kind of life, there are so many lessons we can gather. A seed has hard walls to protect the developing tree, but those walls hold it back from reaching its potential. There comes a moment when the seed must choose to surrender to the process of breaking and becoming. The hard outer shell will keep the tree from breaking out into a space of growth. As a seed, it is impossible to gain access to all the resources it needs to fulfill its potential. A seed has limits. A seed is small and doesn't grow or change. A seed doesn't bear fruit. A seed is closed off from the outside world. A seed is unaware of its own potential. A seed doesn't really live fully in reality, but has two distinct and separate awarenesses, that of its shell and that of being an indistinct something bigger and more magnificent. The seed escapes its life of limitation by allowing the circumstances of life to soften it, or allowing water to penetrate its hard outer shell. While its circumstances create the possibility for breaking free, it must break through not from the outside in, but from the inside out. The small seedling penetrates from the inside, breaking out to access its full capacity to bear fruit and to expand. Let's look deeper into the idea of penetration. The process that begins with ejaculation and ends in pregnancy is also a metaphor for our rebirth and spiritual growth. A large number of sperm begin the journey, but the only one that finishes the journey is the one that succeeds in penetrating the outer layers of the egg. Through the process of penetration, The sperm accesses its ability to reach its potential, to self-actualize, or to grow and expand into its actual self, a baby. In this metaphor, we are both the egg and the sperm, because both feminine and masculine aspects exist within us. Like the egg, we must allow life to penetrate us, to receive newness of life by moving into a level of accelerated growth and expansion. Those that choose to live rigid and without trust will resist life's attempts to penetrate them and experience it as trauma. We must also, like the sperm, take the journey with the intent of self-actualizing by penetrating life. Those that doubt, fear, minimize themselves, or remain unintentional won't allow for penetration and will never self-actualize. They may be ejaculated into life and may even passively take the journey, but they will never penetrate that access door to self-actualization and newness of life. Simply, they live and die having never fully opened the door to their greatest potential. You see, penetration is key. We must allow our minds, bodies, and souls to be penetrated with life and with truth. When we allow, in only the healthiest of circumstances, ourselves to be penetrated during sex, portals to our highest potential are opened. To be penetrated by pleasure is to openly receive. In that space of openness and surrender, it is easy to let go of what holds us back and weighs us down. The only moment in which we can be penetrated is the moment we are presently in. So presence is also key. We can live tense due to living in lack, doubt, mistrust, and in fear. None of these conditions allows for penetration. Total surrender is necessary for physical, emotional, and spiritual penetration. True penetration happens only when we are fully open in surrender. Penetration is a spiritual principle. Before penetration, we must be turned on to life and open. We must have a sense of trust. Without openness and trust as a foundation, penetration can create fear, hurt, and barriers. We must have a sense of safety with who is penetrating us. If it is our partner, trust in our partner must exist for us to be open in surrender. If we don't have that kind of trust, we get to use our voices and our wisdom to help create it. If it is life in general penetrating us, we get to decide if everything is working for us and is therefore worthy of our trust. If not, anything we resist or cling to, meaning all efforts to change others or to change life itself, is futile. God and his universe have already proven themselves to be perfectly trustworthy. We must, like the sperm, take the journey with the intent of self-actualizing by penetrating life. And like the egg, we must allow life to penetrate us. Sperm teach us the masculine. The egg teaches us the feminine. And I think that is really quite beautiful. The masculine and feminine also teach us of our own sacred divine power. If we truly are beings with unlimited potential, then it is our work to rediscover that potential or untapped power. This includes wisely removing all parts of who we think we are that limit our potential and our power, our limits, the parts of us that don't believe in ourselves, our fears, simply the versions of ourselves that aren't the truest versions of ourselves. There is a metaphor in the Bible about putting new wine into old bottles that applies beautifully here. How often do you attempt to add new and good things into your life, to reach new heights, to attain higher ways of being, to accomplish a new goal, and you somehow find a way to, what the world says, sabotage it? It's not really sabotage, and I encourage you to see it differently, because you are not your own worst enemy. The truth is simply this: the unconscious mind insists upon integrity. Said another way, it insists that new ideas and new accomplishments cannot be received into old belief systems. If they are out of integrity, the unconscious mind will simply reject the new ideas and the new actions. I would invite you to believe that you are not your own worst enemy. Self-sabotage, as the world labels it, is a myth. What we call self-sabotage is simply what results when we try to put new wine into old bottles, and our unconscious rejection, because the new content doesn't fit in the old context or belief structure. New ideas don't fit into our old perceptions of the world. We must not only adopt higher ways of living, we must also become clear and open vessels to receive those new ways. New wine in new bottles are able to be preserved together, and this is the key to growth and expansion. A container is a place to hold a thing and to set a thing apart. Your relationship is a container whether you are alone or with a partner. The masculine is doing the holding and setting apart. The feminine allows itself to be held and to be set apart. When each half contributes to the creation of this container, magic is created. There truly is something about marriage and relationships that turns water into wine. In the container of a healthy relationship, through sex especially, the woman is not only set apart, she is cleansed, purified, and made holy. Or said another way, she is healed from her past hurts, from the limits she has due to programming, and is brought to see herself as she always was, divine. This is an idea that you may have never considered before, that I would like you to at least consider now. Think about this. Through sex, a woman learns to let go of rigidity, to be open and vulnerable, to be honest, to use her voice vulnerably and freely, to learn to move intuitively, not from head space, but from body space and heart space, to trust, to follow pleasure, and to receive. Sex also serves as a vehicle for a flow of powerful, creative energy, to open energetic channels to receive more, for gaining access to her most authentic self, because sexual energy carries each woman's unique spiritual blueprint. Breaking through old emotions, fears, and limitations, because orgasm is communion with God and with the holiest version of ourselves. This level of sexual connection and healing is possible when each partner brings all of the deepest parts of themselves to the table, physically and emotionally. Emotionally open, guard down, truth speaking. This lets the most authentic version of self rise to the surface. This kind of sex changes us and allows the most truthful parts of us to come out. This kind of healing is a process. As the partnership goes deeper and deeper and becomes more and more vulnerable, her channels to her own spiritual nature and her spiritual connection are opened and expanded. While this allows her access to higher and higher levels of enlightenment, it also opens up areas that hold fears, wounds, limits, and shame. As she becomes more and more vulnerable and open, it becomes natural for her to let go physically and to let go verbally through emotional expression. This openness and vulnerability dissolves her barriers. She must be in a space where she can be fully open to her own vulnerability in order to access and release all that she must shed in order to become that version of herself that is most true and authentic, her most spiritual self. Sex is how we break through the barriers, the limits, and our own rigidity. Or said another way, conscious, healthy sex is how we heal trauma. When a plant or seed is crushed, the essential oil of the plant is released. When our outer shell is penetrated, the most potent and essential parts of you are also released. Your unique elements and characteristics are liberated and spill out into every facet of your life. You no longer copycat the world and are no longer content to be merely a follower. You become the confident leader of your own life. You know who you are, concentrated power, and unique beauty. You see, nearly everything we have been taught about sex is wrong. Most women don't even know that their bodies are capable of producing different kinds of orgasms from multiple erogenous zones in her body. Most women don't know that they have at least 3 orgasmic superpowers. And if they do, they certainly don't know that these orgasmic superpowers are also spiritual powers. Symbolically, your body is a temple. The exact placement and characteristics of the orgasmic zones in every woman's body mirror a diagram of an ancient Israelite temple. Within the protected confines of the inner court, but still on the outside of the temple, is the altar. It is upon this altar that acts are performed before access is given to the inner parts of the temple. Located in the external portion of every woman's yoni or pussy is the clitoris. The clitoris is a super-sensitized organ whose sole purpose is to produce pleasure. It is powerful for getting the flow of hormones and neurotransmitters going in the process of physical arousal. The clitoris is amazing at beginning the process of turning on, warming up, and lubricating, both necessary for penetration and deeper orgasmic experiences. Clitoral pleasure is superpower number 1. Located outside of the body, the clitoris responds mechanically to stimulation, meaning a woman can experience clitoral pleasure before she feels open and surrendered. Or said another way, it is through clitoral stimulation that all the processes needed to bring her to open surrender happen. Only when acts are performed satisfactorily and the gifts of time and intention are offered upon the altar by those deemed worthy is entrance given to the temple. It is only then that the temple doors are opened to what lies behind the curtain, the holy place. The G-spot, a second highly erogenous zone, is located just inside the vaginal opening and behind the pubic bone. It is from the G-spot or G-zone that a woman's superpower number 2 comes forth. With a gush of lubrication that may or may not accompany a G-spot orgasm, every woman is capable of female ejaculation. Every woman has a sacred right to honor herself and this sacred process. She has a right to protect timing as diligently as a priest would protect the sanctity of the temple. Every woman also has a right to enjoy G-spot orgasms, which, unlike clitoral orgasms, require emotional connection and openness, simply because it is here where her sacred wild resides, the part of her that most wants to be seen, heard, and experienced, but the part she protects the most. At the back of the temple is the Holy of Holies, where we gain direct access to God and to our own expansion into divinity. We all know that the vagina ends at the cervix. Essentially, the cervix is the portal by which women bring life into this world, as it dilates during labor and deliver and allows a baby to make its entrance. Anatomically, this is less important to understand than it is symbolically. Women are heart-centered, yet the true epicenter of her femininity is at her cervix. The cervix serves functionally and symbolically as a portal. We both give birth and are symbolically reborn at our own cervix. The cervix is at the innermost core and is connected to both the heart and the crown chakra. So cervical orgasmic experiences are full body and spiritually transcendent experiences. Few women know that the cervix can and does produce some of the most intense and most fulfilling orgasms. Cervical orgasms produce profound energetic spiritual reset and neurological shifting. This is orgasmic superpower number 3. Both vaginal orgasms are dependent upon deep emotional connection and surrender. Many women have only ever experienced clitoral orgasms. In this case, her sex life may be leaving her unfulfilled, and she may not know why. The 3 orgasmic zones in every woman's body are deeply symbolic and point directly to her divinity. All of this exists anatomically and symbolically at the base of the bone named sacrum, whose root is derived from the same word as sacred. That looks, when turned upside down, like a mountain, the place men often go to find and commune with God. Yet I believe its being upside down is significant. It teaches us that to get there, like the seed, we can't go up to reach the heights we want to attain. We must go down. Like the seed, we must go down in order to become who we are destined to become. For the seed, going down means submitting to being buried in the mud and the muck. For us, we live as if we believe it means the same for us, but it doesn't. In fact, most of us quite easily and willingly submit to the mud and the muck, to the chaos and suffering of life. We can eventually learn that going down for us is something wholly different. To go down for us so that our rebirth can happen means that we go deeper into ourselves. This is something you already know intuitively, yet may have never considered. As human beings, we tend to be most comfortable living on the surface. Yet the seed teaches us that it's under the surface that the magic happens. Meditation is one way for us to go down. Meditation is going down into ourselves, into the quiet stillness within. Everyone knows that it's a challenge to leave the surface, to go into that quiet stillness. Meditation is how we develop an awareness of, how we create space in, and expand our inner world. Almost no one understands that hypnosis is simply meditation with the purpose of going down in introspection and inquiry. It is meditation with questions and answers. Hypnosis is a conversation between the conscious and unconscious minds. For that conversation to happen, the conscious must go down to meet the unconscious where she resides. Hypnosis is the process of going down to learn. Just like we have to pay attention to the words on a page to learn what they have to teach us, the conscious mind must pay attention to the inner world to learn. Hypnosis is a way we go down and become aware of what is written in the unconscious mind and to consciously learn something different. And you may have not even begun to consider that sex is also a way to go down into self for the purpose of connection. Sex on the surface, or sex in which we can't get out of headspace, leaves us feeling disconnected. When we surrender and go down into the depths of our connection with ourselves, we can connect with our partner and with God on a soul level. This kind of connection dissolves everything that once kept us disconnected. This is the ultimate spiritual experience. It is under the surface that the magic happens. It's on the surface that the wind blows and the waves crash. Under the waves, all is still. And it's ironic that only the bravest souls will leave the crashing waves and go under, venturing into the quiet stillness. And it's in that quiet stillness that we are liberated. You are a developing tree, not just a seed. Do not let yourself be deceived into believing that you are breaking. You are only being liberated. You have been taught that the source of your physical energy comes from food and sleep, but this simply isn't the whole truth. There is a generator of energy inside of you that you most likely have shut down and locked up. Your pussy or your yoni is a power plant or a divine energy transfer station, and it doesn't just produce physical energy. It produces life force energy that is not only powerful, but magnetic. This power plant is your source of divinity and feminine energy. Most of us exist in life attempting to make life happen without this gold mine of energy, and we aren't just exhausted, we are confused. We instinctively know that life could require less effort, if only we could figure out how. Over the course of our lifetimes, we've all had experiences that have led us to shut down and board up this power generator. We've been taught shame and mistrust. This power plant is where our attractiveness is generated, both physical and magnetic. It is also the source which magnetically pulls to us all the resources we need to experience a full and fulfilling life. For women, life begins anew when we learn how to open the locks, pull down the barriers, and breathe life into this internal power plant. As we have seen, nature herself is a teacher, and she uses metaphors to preach her sermons. When I realized I had a gift for translating nature's sermons into words that powerfully change our perceptions of who we are and how the world works, I have worked to develop my gift. And more often than not, at the moment they come clear, they take my breath away. One of my favorite metaphors proclaims the truth of the same dual reality revealed to us by the seed. We say healing work, shadow work is hard. Yet, if we were really afraid of our shadow side, of our darkness, of our pain and struggle and misery as a whole, we would avoid them, wouldn't we? But we don't. And our disorder and dis-ease we wear like badges of honor sometimes. And I think it is brave to finally admit that. We argue for our limitations. We say that revealing our shadow side to ourselves and to each other is vulnerable and hard, but we aren't being completely honest. We talk about and focus on these things constantly. We tell ourselves and each other that we don't like our shadows, but the truth is that we do. Our shadows or our problems are actually quite comforting. They give us meaning. They give us identity. They give us excuses. They give us a feeling of control because we have something to be distracted by, and they give us a feeling of power because we have something to fix. Being stuck in our old patterns gives us power to predict the future. And these things are what humans want most: meaning, identity, control, and power. So why aren't we happy? So why aren't we happy and thriving if we are getting what we want? Because the meaning, the identity, the control, and the power that we have settled for is like the moon, shiny enough to see in the darkness of light. Yet the moon is not too much. We know that moon's light doesn't come from inside itself. Hers is a reflection of a brighter light. The moon's light is an illusion, and gazing upon her is easy on the eyes, isn't it? Moon is shadow illuminated with the reflection of the real source of light, the sun, because the truth is that the moon's light is really sunlight. That is the illusion. If we were to stop seeing only the moonlight, our shadow or our lesser light, and go to the source of that light, we would find sun, and we would find who we really are too. The truth is that the thing we truly fear is the thing we almost completely avoid: our brilliance. Because we all know that it hurts to look at the sun, we avoid our brilliance for the same reason. Even though it's present in our lives every day, we don't look at the sun. It's too much. Your brilliance is every day with you, as is your shadow. What you see depends on what you choose to see. What we are experiencing now in the world and in ourselves is an eclipse. Our moons are perfectly covering the brilliance of our suns that we don't want to look at. And when we do, true meaning, identity, and power will illuminate our lives. They will come the moment we come to see and accept who we really are. Just like you are the seed and the tree, you are also both the moon and the sun. And the process of unbecoming one and becoming the other is really a process of coming into awareness. When we realize that we are not only meant to reflect light, but we were born to shine as brightly as the sun, we will begin to truly radiate, to be in our brilliance, to experience our holiness, to penetrate this world with our radiance, to be our most wise and sovereign selves, to feel divinely beautiful, to welcome an abundance of pleasure, to stand fully surrendered to our experiences in this world, fully open, completely liberated, sovereign. I am here to declare that I think we aren't doing this healing work in the way it could be done. I'm going to be a rebel and proclaim that loud and clear. I see things differently, and I am brave enough to say it. I think it is much simpler and much more profound than we have ever let ourselves believe. It might be true that it isn't possible for our physical eyes to take in all the brilliance of the sun. But what if we thanked the eclipse and the hard shell for protecting us until we were ready, and allowed ourselves to get used to the light and life inside of us? I wonder what would happen if we focused on and talked about our radiance instead. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation. Sexual Reclamation is Spiritual Rebirth was born out of my online course, Reclamation. Reclamation is an online course and more. Reclamation takes a deep plunge into the why of symptoms that plague the lives of women today. taught from the perspective of a woman that navigated emotional numbness and sexual repression to being born into an experience of exquisite feelings, massive potential for creation and nourishing connection, and an expert in the workings of the unconscious mind. Reclamation is a treatise on how women can claim true liberty in their lives. This course is about realigning with our nature, fully believing in our power, shedding the layers of who we thought we were because of who we have been told we are, and stepping into divine radiance. Every woman on the planet should understand the truths taught in this course. Armed with the information in this course, you will be able to reclaim your unique self, your body, your mind, your voice, your boundaries, your emotions, your choices, and your internal guidance system. The Reclamation Initiative is both a community and an invitation. It is an invitation to the women of the world to reclaim all that has been lost to them. Today, we have more rights than we have had in the past, yet we are plagued with inner limits that hold us back from accepting and embodying all of our power to become who we really are. The Reclamation Initiative is an invitation for women to look longer at what society tells us about who we are and to dig deeper within ourselves to find the truth. It is a call to women around the world and to the women next door to awaken from the sleep-like state imposed by social programming and the indoctrination in our past to reconnect deeply with our own internal compasses. The Reclamation Initiative is also a community. It is a community of women committed to reclaiming their sovereignty by unleashing their sexuality. This is a community of women committed to vulnerability, honesty, integrity, accountability, and autonomy. In the end, all the symptoms of disorder and dis-ease in your life aren't your real problem. They are problems your unconscious mind creates to distract you from your biggest problem, that you are afraid of your own divine magnificence, and you are hiding from it in a heinous act of self-betrayal. Isn't it time to not do that anymore?